everyone. Happy Friday to you all. Another edition of the Recruit Spotlight, episode 5. Just me and Will today. Jackson is over in Dallas doing one of our VYPE campus media days, so he could not make it, but he is on the grind as always. But before we get into the show, I got to bring in my man Will. Will, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's been a little bit quiet in recruiting the last week, but the dead period is over, and I think things are about to ramp up once again.
So, something you probably don't hear, quite as often when you think of high school football is, hey, there are some quiet times in high school football, but they are few and far between. Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. And of course, our first segment of the show is, of course, talking about just any news we hear across the state of Texas, and then just talking recruiting in general. So, before we talk just recruiting in general, any news across the state? I know you said it's a quiet week, Will, but any news across the state that you can kind of let the viewers in on?
Yeah, the rankings across the nation have been shifted as of this week. We've seen some guys in Texas go up. I believe 3 out of the top 10 receivers in the country now are from Texas. That would be Jonte Cook, Jaquez Petaway, and Ryan Niblett. Two of those guys in the Houston area.
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't have all this stuff in front of me, but is one of those from the? Let me put myself on the screen there so people can see me at home. Is that the class of 2024 as well that you're talking about? Because I know that
That's
one.
that's 23.
Okay, so but 2024 as well. I saw that one come out, and there's also a Texas kid at the top of the list from Dallas, South Oak Cliff. So Dallas once again just proven that, or not Dallas, but Texas, that it is the cream of the crop when it comes to Texas or just high school sports in general. Any other news besides that, Will? Before we jump into some just regular recruiting talk.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about something on the show last week. Jonah Wilson added a couple players. We called the Fantastic Four: Jonte Cook, Arch Manning, and Ruben Owens alongside Wilson. That turned into a big piece that we did with Jonah Wilson, where he named maybe 20 players that he'd like to team up with. A lot of those players have seen that. They've reached out to him, from what I've heard, and I mean, we may have started something pretty big, and Jonah did it himself there.
And again, we talked about this last week, just with the rise of social media and what that does or what that's doing for stuff like this. I mean, it was kind of fun for us when we saw it and we're like, hey, let's just put together this fun little graphic. And then, as you know, you posted it, and then it took off in the Texas recruiting boards. So very, very exciting stuff happening. It's going to be interesting to see about, does this all come to fruition. You got to take some of this crystal ball stuff with a grain of salt, but I think right now it's what he's kind of projected for our Arch anyways. He's projected for Bama, but you get all these people together and get it all hyped up, and all these people can go to the same place. So going to be very interesting to watch with this whole year left to go about where some of these kids will end up. That is going to put a bow on it, unless, Will, you want to jump in for anything else last second. But let's talk about just recruiting in general. A couple of things I want to, we have a comment, our first YouTube comment. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But something that I saw from this past week was that Troy Aikman, we kind of talked about this last week as far as, do you do multi-sport? Do you just stick to one sport? Troy Aikman is on the multi-sport bandwagon. He came out this past week and said, I think these kids need to be, doing multiple sports. Will, once again, the case for multi-sport athletes continues.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you look at the top players, not only in the NFL or in college football, but in other sports like baseball and basketball. You think about guys like Patrick Mahomes, triple sport athlete in high school. Joe Mauer played for the Twins for years. He was one of the best players in the country at football. Allen Iverson, the list goes on. So when we're thinking about this, and this question came up, I talked to a guy, DeJuan Lewis, good friend of the show, still goes to Shadow Creek. He is going to Prairie View A&M for not only football, but baseball as well. So the question was, how do you stay at such a high level? And he said, I always felt like I was missing out one sport or the other. But I realized if I stayed committed, if I stayed on track with everything, if I was in the weight room in the spring, maybe I had to miss some workouts for baseball, and then on the other side, made sure that I was still working on baseball during football season. He knew it was going to work out, and it obviously did. He said 7-on-7 can be great, but as long as you're locked into those sports all the time, Your school sports come before anything. He said that worked perfectly for him.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, every situation is unique, right? There's no one golden ticket or one note one. There's not one path that's proven to work for everyone, right? So some people may stick to one sport and it works out perfectly for them. But I think what you're seeing is, a lot of other sports have mechanics that tie into football, and I think that's what I think that's what some. I think more and more that's becoming a realization for coaches, especially ads, across the state is, hey, yeah, your kid, he might be really great at football and he should focus on that, but let's get him on track and work that muscle memory of those legs. So there's definitely definitely benefits to doing multi sports, as you mentioned. One comment we had, and I want to get your take on this, kind of plays into that. That again, we had our first YouTube comment last week from James McKeever on YouTube. He asks, "How do the football players with equal upside in baseball keep themselves on the football recruiting radar during baseball season?" This is a very good question. As you know, I mean, we're doing a show about football in the spring. That tells you how year long this is. So in situations where a student has to step away because they're just as committed to baseball, how do they keep themselves on the football recruiting radar? Will?
Yeah, so originally I thought about Dewan with this because I actually met him originally through baseball. Didn't realize how great of a football player he was. Right now we're seeing with Roy Thomas Jenkins. He was our first guest of this series. He plays baseball at Beaumont Kelly Catholic, and he is one of their best players. Already on the varsity squad there. He will have a lot of potential there. At the same time, he knows that he's getting interest from A&M, from Georgia, from Clemson, from UT to play football. So he's still going to camps. He's still going to 7-on-7 events, but he's doing as much as he can with baseball. He's not going to miss any games to do the football stuff unless it's absolutely necessary. So I think when you're a guy like that, you kind of test the waters. Yeah, Jaden Greathouse, who plays football and basketball, he was playing AAU and 7-on-7 at the same time. He realizes, let's see where I'm best at. Let's see what I have a better future in. So I think it's really tough. Like you said, it's different for everyone. But I think what you do there is you use both sports to your advantage. You get those mechanics, and you really see which one you have a better future in.
And I'll be honest, I'm not 100, know as much about recruiting as maybe the next person does, or someone, maybe someone like you even. But I would say even looking at your calendar, finding maybe that one 7-on-7, that one kind of recruiting spotlight training camp or whatever that's not on a weekend, maybe where you have a baseball game. And I know that's few and far between once baseball season starts, but finding maybe that one camp you can go to during the quote unquote football off season where you can put something together to show people, and then just keep on working at it. What do you think of that, Will?
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, if you're going to be committed to a 7-on-7 team, or you're going to be committed to going to a camp series, I don't think that you can really do that halfway. We see a lot of guys, especially at the top right now, who say, I'll play for your 7-on-7 team, but only on my time. And we had a conversation about this either last week or the show before, that college coaches often say they never look at 7-on-7 and they never pay attention to that kind of stuff. That's not true. They'll know if you're not showing up to games and things like that, and you're not all the way locked in. So I think if you're going to do it all the way. Do as much as you can. I don't know if I'm in a position to say there are no off days at this point, but that is what recruiters are looking for, that guys that don't take any time off.
Yeah, and I think you put it wonderfully there. It is a grind, right? You're going to have to realize there's not going to be a lot of off time when you're trying to get recruited, because if you're, like you said, if you are doing baseball and you want to do stuff on the side, you're going to have to be committed all in, or almost all in. It can't be just a half a glass full type of thing. You're going to have to be full, if not nearly full. So I think that's a good point where if you do decide to do that, you're going to have to go all in. And look, at the end of the day, there are some students are going to play multiple sports, and they're not going to have time for all that stuff. And so that's going to be maybe excelling at those other sports, right? So I mean, hey, again, if let's say I use track as the biggest example because I think that's, excuse me, I think that's the kind of one of the sports you can do that's going to help you on the field. And so hey, you're not competing at 7-7, you're not competing at these camps, but you're putting times on paper to show you know how fast you are. So there's some things you can do, I would say. Whereas if you can't do these camps, that you're still showing yourself to these recruiters. Will, would you agree to that assessment?
Yeah, I would agree. And we've talked about track before, but especially with wide receivers and defensive backs, that is killer. You know, you can. We've seen guys at the top do 7-on-7 and do track. It's really worked out for them. Julio Humphrey from Clear Lake, who's now at the University of Georgia, was one of the best in the state of Texas for track last year. He's one of the fastest guys when they had the All American Bowl a few months ago. Marcus Scott from Conroe is another guy like that. So I think, staying in with one other sport, track, is a lot less of a time commitment. I think that, almost anyone in football should be doing that.
So James, I guess the answer to your question is it really depends on you, right? So if you have that time commitment where you're going to go all in, go to some camps. If not, use what you can in baseball to help you out with football, and that's really how you keep yourself on the football recruiting radar. I would also probably say continue to reach out to these recruit. What's the official title for the college recruiters? What are they called? Will the official title for college recruiting? Because like you got the certain one, right? Whatever they're called, you keep in touch with them, right? Don't just lose touch with them just because you're not playing the sport. If you're all in on baseball in the spring, still reach out to them and be like, hey coach, how's it going? So I think that's, and I'm sure if we can ever get, maybe a college recruiter on, he'll probably tell you the same thing. And let's try to do that. Well, let's try to get him on, but he'll probably tell you the same thing of, hey, don't lose contact even if you're not doing football related stuff. So I think James, I think there's tons of things you can do, and hopefully some of the stuff we mentioned can help out and answer that question for you. Will, any final thoughts before we move on to our interview for the week?
I don't think so. We've got a great interview, though.
Yes, we do. From Friendswood, a linebacker that is turning heads. It is Braylan Shelby. Will, you're going to have that interview for us. I'll let you take it away.
I am now joined by Braylon Shelby from Friendswood High School. Braylon, welcome to the show.
What's good? What's good?
Glad to have you on, man. You got a lot of energy. Excited to see that. There are a lot of people excited to see you on this show. So let's just go ahead and get it started. You have become a big-time recruit. We've known that for the last, year and a half. But really in the last few months, you started getting some big offers. Texas and USC seem like the two biggest ones out of the last few months. Tell me about how, take it from at the end of this season, how did the recruiting process kind of kick back up for you?
As soon as the season ended, it seemed as almost like it just ran like right back up. It was kind of slow. I'd say like throughout the season, it was a little slow. I picked up Penn State throughout the season, but that was like the only one I picked up through the season. But then as soon as the season ended, maybe a week or two goes by, and it just ran right back up.
Yeah, we kind of saw with COVID and everything, guys in your class, and especially in the 22 class, didn't get a lot of the really cool stuff in recruiting, like school visits, and that's all back now. Were there any schools late in January? I think that was late January, early February. Did any schools come to see you?
Oh yes, sir. A ton of schools did. I say just about seemed almost every period I was getting pulled out of class. Like Texas was there, Coach Sarkisian was there, USC, Vanderbilt, Baylor, Minnesota, just like a ton of schools were there.
Yeah, how cool is that? And how big of a big man on campus is that kind of feel where, hey guys, I got to miss class. Steve Sarkisian's waiting for me outside.
I mean, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I ain't gonna lie. It's just like you just gotta try to stay humble about it, but it's pretty cool, and everybody kind of like looks up to me, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're a leader on campus. You tell you're a great student, 3-sport athlete. We're doing this interview right after you have track practice, so and that's actually a topic on our show this week on how guys like you stay busy and still compete at such a high level. So I praise you for that. Let's take it back to March of last year, because it's almost been a month since you got your first offer. Sophomore season, really breakout. A lot of guys, and you took that to the fullest extent. You get an offer on March 29th of 2021 from Oklahoma State. What was the process with them, and when do you remember getting that call that you were going to get your first official offer?
I remember just like yesterday. It was I had just got done working out in my little home gym I had built. I had one of my parents to build a home gym for me so I could start working out and stuff. So I just got done working out with me and my dad. I come inside and I get a little Twitter DM like, oh, like it's Oklahoma. Like I'm excited for one. I didn't know it was gonna happen the same day. So I give him my number and stuff, and then he wanted my head coach's number. So I give him my head coach's number. Then maybe 20 minutes later, he asked me to call him. So I call him, and it felt unbelievable. It felt like all my hard work had paid off. To be honest, it's so unreal. It's such a blessing to like get my first offer. It was really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and it just kind of took off from there. I mean, within the span of the month, you got Vanderbilt, SMU, and Baylor, and then the camp series started to kick off, and it seems like just about everyone wanted you. You've been linked to Tennessee a lot. You took a visit up there this past summer. Tell me about your relationship with them.
Honestly, I love Tennessee. Like if I had to make a top schools right now, they would definitely be there. It's something about like Knoxville, like the trees, like it's beautiful, and the mountains and stuff. Yeah.
Are there any guys that have kind of been in this whole process with you? Maybe guys a year or two older that have gone through this that you've talked to and kind of looked up to.
Definitely my brother. My brother went through the same process, and my dad. My dad played at Arkansas, and my brother played at ULM. So I use both of them as like mentors to really like use my decisions where I should go and just see what I should really be looking at when I go to like a school.
So what do you think the key was? Because now you're the third member of your immediate family to go through this process. What do you think it was, being a kid, looking up to your dad, looking up to your brother, how did you take that next step and get to this level?
It was really just like for me, it was really looking at my brother because I could see it happening in front of my face. I got to go on a couple of visits with them. It was just really just like I saw that for myself. I wanted the same exact thing he was going through. So it really just me like looking up to him and really just wanting the same exact thing.
You had a great list coming into the new year. But man, I'll just read them all off since January 1st. Indiana, Illinois, Duke, TCU, Tulane, Texas, USC, Utah, and Florida State. That's a mouthful right there. And those are some pretty big programs that I listed. Earlier on, we mentioned Texas and USC, and you actually got to go to Junior Day in Austin a few weeks ago. Is that right?
Is there?
Who were some of the guys that you connected to there, and what was that whole experience like?
Some of the guys I connected with there were definitely Coach K. Coach K, Coach man, why am I can't remember his name at the moment. Coach K, Coach Jake Lange, Coach almost every Coach Sarkeesian, Coach Martin, like the new wide receiver coach they just hired. Because he was at my school actually on Thursday, the day before that. It was just amazing, just talking to all the coaches and getting to know everybody.
Well, I don't know if you know, but there's a couple of recruits right now that are thinking about teaming up. They all have offers from Texas, Jonah Wilson being one of those. So I'm sure you'd be welcomed on that train, whether it's Texas or any other program. So 2 days after that Texas offer, you get USC. And, man, that may be the most talked about program in the entire country right now. How big of a factor are they playing in? I know it's only been about a month since you got that offer, but what's the deal there?
So actually tomorrow I'm leaving on a flight to go to USC. So they're pretty big. They're pretty big up there. So I'm really just going to go see if I enjoy it up there up in LA. And I talked with the coach. I talked to Lincoln Riley. Talked to kind of coaches there, and I talked to the kids that are going there. So the 5-star QB that's committed there, Malachi Nelson. Yeah, I talked to him, and I'm really just looking forward to go and see what it's like up in LA. It'll be my first time ever on the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, I think you won't have too much of a hard time finding a good time in LA. So yeah, I'm sure you'll have quite a bit of fun there. You're wearing a North Carolina shirt right now, and it seems almost ridiculous to ask this, considering how many offers you have right now. But are there any more schools talking to you?
Actually, there are a few. So like Northwestern, Arizona. Um, I was talking to Missouri the other day and Mississippi State. So yeah, there's a few other schools that's still looking for. They want me to like come up there.
You talked about USC, and I know you've made a couple other visits. Are there any other visits you already have scheduled at this point, or just kind of waiting it out?
So the USC is the only one I have scheduled for right now, but I know I'm definitely going to go visit some more schools in the March, spring games and stuff like that. So yes, sir. So I definitely have there's a double more plan, but they're not really playing yet, really.
And it seems like our whole kind of focus in the last few weeks has been social media and guys from all across the country wanting to team up with each other. If there's one guy in the class of 2023 that you want to team up with, who is it?
I'll probably say either Anthony Hill or either Anthony Hill or my guy. Hold on, I know where he at. Dylan Gooden. Oh my God, Dylan Gooden.
Well, Anthony Hill, we've heard that name a lot in the state of Texas. So I'm sure he'll see this. He'll know that maybe you guys are headed to the same place. I wish you the best of luck, man. Great talking to you. Hopefully we get to talk soon. And yeah, sending my best.
Yes, sir.
Once again, a big shout out and thanks to Braylon Shelby for taking the time out of his day to join us on Recruit Spotlight. A man with 23 offers so far, and that number is not going to stay there. It's going to go up for sure. So thanks again, Braylon, and thanks Will for taking the time to interview him for us.
Yeah, of course. Braylon's a great guy. Hopefully we'll get to talk to him again soon.
Speaking of great guys, we have another one for our under the radar spotlight, our segment to close the show. Only one this week because again Jackson is not here. So Will, who is that under the radar athlete that people need to pay more attention to? Take it away.
I'm still raving about guys from the Shock Doctor tournament a couple of weeks ago because, man, the talent from all across the nation was great, but really in the greater Houston area, they showed out. Richard Edwards plays defensive back and wide receiver at Tomball Memorial. They had a down year, but he didn't. He looks great for them. He looks great for South Texas Elite 7-on-7. At 6 foot 175, this guy is cut. He's in great shape. He's got some great hands. He'll make some fantastic grabs out there, and I think this is a guy that everyone should be looking at.
Well, there you go, folks. Definitely, if you're a recruiter watching the show, check out that guy right there. I know Will, he always has them, and they're always spot on. So Will can't miss. Will doesn't miss. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to put it out there right now. Will doesn't miss. There we go. Hey, if you are an athlete that feels maybe you're under the radar and you want to get some love, let us know in the comments. Let us know in DMs, emails, whatever. Let us know. VYPE. We will shout you out on this show. Or hey, if you have any questions about recruiting or anything like that, like you saw, we answered a question from last week's show. So let us know. We will answer these questions for you. But before we get out of here today, Will, give us a little shout out. Who you want to shout out today?
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Dennis Johnson, who sent me a great message after my Under the Radar recruit last week. Denham Johnson was spotlighted on the show. Shout out to Drayton Jones and his family as well. And shout out to Hakeem Olajuwon for supporting his son and Texas high school sports for Clemens basketball. Great to see him out there.
Yeah, that's right. They are on to the regional tournament. I guess you could call it regional semifinals, and then hopefully regional finals happening this Friday and Saturday. I want to shout out my wife just because I got to every now and then show her some love. So shout out my wife. That's going to do it for this week's edition for Recruit Spotlight. We will be back next Friday for another episode. Hopefully Jackson will be back. Until then, I'm Wack. That's Will, and we'll see you at the games.